I mean, the big thing that I usually kind of like, well, tell people or tell students and stuff, it's kind of like, it's the word taste. So the taste is very subjective, right? So each person have different tastes and stuff like that. But that is the key. That is the like, so you have to improve your taste. I feel anyway. So that's how you kind of like grow as a person in a way. But obviously you can't just keep eating the same thing, right? If you want to kind of broaden your kind of like language or whatever, your knowledge. Like I always compare with food. So you have to try different food and then see, okay, I like it this way, that I like the spiciness of this or whatever. And some really creative chefs and stuff, they can create like, I don't know, fusion or whatever, something that's new coming up from that, right? So so
Right.
that's quite similar to illustration, I find.
Awesome. And would you say that for you was the most productive thing for creative development, just being able, just immersing yourself in a lot of different things, or was it more just doing and drawing a lot?
I think like in the beginning, you should actually draw a lot, right? Just to get that skill up to a certain level. But after you get into a certain level, after you're comfortable and not getting, I mean, I'm still, to be honest, I'm still frustrated when I draw, right? Because it's just going like, oh, it is so hard, right? But you're going up to a certain level, you're okay with it, right? But after that, to me, it's just about improving taste. It's just about improving taste, because that's how you actually being critical about your work too. So that's how I actually say to myself, okay, this is not good enough, or this is okay, this is good enough. I can stop here. I think like people with like bad taste and stuff, it will reflect in their work too, because at one point they will stop and say, okay, this is finished, right? So and you'll see like the quality from there in a way. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, well, you increase the amount of references that you have in your mind of what good
Yes.
and bad actually is, and you use that
Yes.
and leverage that to judge your own work accordingly. Because when you're
For sure.
starting out, you don't know anything, right? I mean, unless,
That's right.
as I said, unless you're extremely talented, which is not the majority,
Right. Right.
you do need those references to judge your work accordingly. Because a
Yeah.
lot of things you probably might think something, it looks good, but then as you educate yourself on what good actually is, and I know it's subjective, but to a certain extent, right? Um,
Yeah.
then you can
It's
have a
it.
better critical ability about your own work, and a better critical ability on how you want to develop yourself in the future.
That's right. It's quite interesting. I was reading about well, not reading, but just kind of like get into this Dunning-Kruger effect. You know, how like in the beginning you feel like you know everything, you know more than you know, you kind of know really. So I mean, I went through that, right? So I just thought like, oh, you know, I know what good is, right? I know what art that is kind of like you know, high art or whatever, right? But once you actually do it yourself, you actually go into that phase where you just actually, I know nothing. I know nothing at all, you know, and then you grow from there. So it's quite interesting to kind of like get that feeling of like knowing everything, and then you just go like, don't know anything, and then you just go start to build things again and start to, yeah. So
Yeah, and you know, a funny part of that process is probably also that, you know, when you're starting out, it's weird because you almost don't have this ability to judge things subjectively. You
mm,
judge them, either they're good or bad. It's either black or white. You know, you're very
yeah,
binary in terms of your decision
that's
making when
right,
it comes to
that's right.
criticizing your work. And
Yeah,
as you said, that level of thinking will get you to maybe the okay version where when you get
yeah,
to that point and you start again trying to understand and grasp what the meaning of good work is, and you get into something,
mm,
you start understanding subjectivity a lot more. That's when
that's
you
right, that's
realize
right.
that you'll never know enough. And even when you
Yeah,
are this magical, you know, talented being and your skill, there's
yeah, right.
still the nature of the discipline in it of itself just has a never ending sort of learning process to it, whether it be technical and especially creatively, because again, of the nature of subjectivity and in art in general.
Yes, it is a journey. It is a journey. Like when I actually one day when I think that I'm so good at what I do, I think I'm gonna move to other industry. I think that's what I'll do. Not that I didn't move from film to books because I thought I was good, but yeah, you know what I mean, right? Once I actually reach that point, I think that's it. I don't know. I'll do gardening or something.
100%. And a lot of people use that on purpose. You know, they sort of hit a wall in their creative careers, and it might not be a wall in terms of like they just can't learn anymore because there's always things to learn. But again, they might just get to a point where they need something more to complement what they're doing. And that's why I found that most of the best, usually the best creatives or the best creators out there are not just really good at one thing. They're really good at multiple creative disciplines. For example, incredible architects are usually also incredible photographers or incredible cinematographers, you know, because they're able to get their skill to a certain level and then leverage other aspects of creativity or disciplines to broaden and deepen the knowledge that they have on their specific skill.
Yeah, for sure. You know? Like to actually get like other interests, it's very, very important, I think, as creatives, I think.
And it can happen starting out, you know, but I think usually it's more productive to focus. And this is just me with my background in the fashion industry, which is one that I'm experienced in. When you're starting out, and correct me if I'm wrong in illustrating, if it works in a similar way, when you're starting out, you do need to focus on the one thing that you want to develop to a certain extent.
Yes.
And then once you're in a solid place, you're able to start diversing your focus into other different disciplines to complement the same skill.
Yeah, that's exactly correct. Yeah. So that's what I was kind of like discussing before, right? That's like the technical. It's very important to get the technical solid in a way, because unless you're like very talented, then you can do abstract and suddenly people go bang, see, wow, that's a masterpiece. Like most people can't. They just have to go through steps, you know. So and that's the hard part too. So
and I think also a lot of people don't get through that barrier in the first place, especially nowadays because of social media. Probably you and I mean, I struggled with it, and social media wasn't that big when I was growing up. But you know, you get attracted to so many different things. Creative people are highly open to inspiration, to new ideas. And at the very beginning, you're going to have to compromise all that for the sake of focus, because it's very easy to start something. And again, average people is going to suck at something that they start in, whether it be drawing, whether it be design, whether it be fine art. And because you suck at it, you don't enjoy the process much, you know?
That's right.
And therefore you start having a tendency to start trying different things and never getting through this like barrier.
The focus. The focus is, I mean, social media can be really positive thing, but it can be such a negative thing too, isn't it? Like it just sucked your focus away. That's the thing, is like, again, I think I'm much older than you, but when I was young, obviously books was great, because you go to a library or you go to like a bookstore
and you can only afford one.
Exactly. Well, that's the thing. Yeah. It's either you can only afford one, or like you just kind of like, I go to library, right? And there's only so much, right? There's a limited kind of like collection there. So once, you know, the series that you love like ended, well, you try out stuff that you don't normally read, right? Just for the sake of it, because you get bored now they can get almost anything, and it's just like overflowing. And I think a lot of people, they stop because of that. It's just overwhelming. And then the comparison, right? They always compare. It's like, oh yeah, you know, this guy's like 16 and he's like made, I don't know, he's a billionaire. So I don't know, selling somewhere and stuff like that.
Crypto courses, cryptocurrency courses.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, why haven't haven't got anything? I'm like, I don't know, 20 something already. It's like, well, dude, it's like, you know, there's still like a long time ahead of you. It's like just enjoy the process. But a lot of people can't do that. I mean, I can understand. I get distracted too, right, with social media. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of positive thing though with social media too. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. No, I'm with you. I mean, I completely agree with you. I think a lot of people struggle, it's especially at the beginning, because again, people they're kids, you know, they're 15, 18 years old. They want to pursue this career, but they have this
Yeah.
unlimited access to just visual resources from different disciplines. And then you have the stories of the people that are also being rich, doing this and doing that, or being successful artists. And they have so much access to that. And therefore, you know, they're stuck in this situation. Well, I want that, but I can't even draw a straight circle or a straight line.
That's right.
How can I skip this part of the process and become that?
Yes.
And they try to skip that part of the process by trying different things. First drawing, then they go to I don't know, fashion, then they go to something else, and they buy a cryptocurrency course and they start trading. You know,
that's right.
And you end up in this never ending cycle of just consuming a lot of things, but consuming it in a non-productive way. It's a very important skill that you need to, it's a type of discipline, you know, being able to just focus on, okay, what I want to do, what is the most productive content that I can absorb to get there. And then how can I start, you know, focusing on the next step and the next step and the next step.
To actually do it. That's the hardest part, isn't it?
Yeah, and I have a lot of respect for that, because I went through that process as well. That's why I like having a lot of illustrators in this podcast specifically, because I used to I used to love drawing. I remember I used to like copy Yu-Gi-Oh cards when I was growing up.
All right.
Yu-Gi-Oh? Yeah. I just, because in Mexico you don't have access to anything, right? Yu-Gi-Oh cards were very rare. You couldn't really buy a lot of them, and so I just started copying like every single Yu-Gi-Oh card and cutting it out. But I remember I looked at my work and I was like, oh, dude, this sucks. You know, like my work sucks. And I'm always in the same position as somebody else now, where they're like, wow, my work sucks. And I'm looking at this guy and he's great at it. What should it, like, sort of like the emotional process, the technical problems that come with it.
That's right. That's right.
Difficult. Also, Charles, I do want to ask you, with all those books right there, like what sort of content do you have? Because you're speaking a lot about, you know, consuming a lot of things to progress.
So lots of stuff, like it's from picture books to art book to like fashion books to like graphic designs, photography. So different stuff. I mean, I love different type of stuff. So it's kind of like sometimes when you just look at one source. So for example, if I'm a picture book maker, if I'm just looking at picture books, I'm just recycling what's out there in a way. So what I'm trying to do is just kind of like combine things in my brain anyway, and then just kind of like the output, and then go through the output from my brain into something that's hopefully that's a little bit unique in a way. So yeah,
I get it. And have you found yourself buying a specific type of book more than others?
I used to. So the book behind me was like it's kind of like probably only a quarter of what I used to have in a way, because I move a lot again. Like I have to cut down the books and stuff that I have. I used to, like, for example, just very specifically just collect, like, you know, art book that has this, I don't know, flat kind of like retro drawings, right? So I love them. So I just buy them and stuff like that. But these days, no. These days was like, it's almost a random thing. So I love going to again, if I just go through social media, right, the algorithm is actually deciding for me, right? So what I love to do usually, I just go to bookstore and I just blindly browse. And then again, just using almost like an instinct now. I just look at something. It's like, wow, this is so weird that I love it. So I usually buy weird stuff.
Yeah.
So so it's like a lots of things that I kind of like think that I don't really like. Is as in not that I don't like. It's almost like something that challenged me in a way when I see them. In a way. So because there's lots of like from through the course of my careers and stuff, I got proven wrong over and over again with either film or artwork or photography, where in the beginning I hated them. Like it was so boring, for example, like film, like the old films and stuff like that. And suddenly it just changed slowly. And now I love them. Right.
Okay. And
So
what would you say was the cause of that barrier? Was it the lack of technical ability, the lack of creative understanding? What would you say it was?
It's
Hindsight.
it's almost like as a human, right? We're not used to getting or we're not used to like or getting used to something that's so different from what we used to you know experience in a way. So it's uncomfortable to see something that kind of like challenge us in a way. So for example, this is a great example. Do you know Fantastic Mr. Fox by Wes Anderson, that film?
Nope.
So so there's this director called Wes Anderson, right? So he's pretty well known now, but he got this one animated film. He usually make like a live action film, but he did one animation where he used puppets. So it's stop motion animation, right? And the character design, I would call it borderline ugly.
I'm looking at it right now. I remember perfectly, especially for that time. Yeah, it was in early 2000. It was like in 2010, right? Yeah. I remember perfectly. Yeah.
It didn't do too well in terms of like box office or whatever, right? So it wasn't Disney or Pixar, right? Where when you look at them, it's like, wow, this is so appealing, right?
Yeah, it was very crude, very raw.
Very crude, raw, right? So I look at the poster, right? I was like, I'm not gonna watch this. The characters are so ugly. It was like, So, and then one day I thought like, oh, I'll give it a chance. 3 minutes into the film, I was like, oh my goodness, this thing blew my mind, right? Watched the whole thing, went out, bought the Blu-ray, watched the whole thing again, with commentary. I was obsessed, right? So it's kind of like, and it's one of my favorite films. So, and then there was the like other films too, which was like, oh my God, this film is so slow, it's so boring. It's like I can't take it. And then I almost forced myself to actually get into it and use that kind of like, it's almost like empathy, like almost like, okay, what do they want to tell? Like, why is it slow and stuff like it? Once I get it, I love it in a way. So there is that in a way. It's kind of like, again, to challenge myself. I mean, I do it with food now too. So things that I don't like to eat, right? I'm just like, oh my God, this like Vegemite, there's this Australian kind of like,
it's pretty good. Yeah, it's pretty good.
Do you know
like
Vegemite, right?
I like it. Yeah.
So in the beginning, I hate it. I was like, what is this thing when I first came into Australia, right? Why people like this? And I forced myself to eat it for every day for 3 months. I said like, I'm going to eat this every day for 3 months. If I don't like it, that means I don't like it, right? After about 2 weeks, I love it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting way to put it, right? Because it's the same as trying to understand just literal points of view that are not something that you agree with.
Yes.
Creatively might be okay. You have this identity of what you enjoy creatively, a specific aesthetic, specific technical process. And then you look at something that's completely different. You're like, like completely in contrast to what you're used to or what you enjoy. And you have this assumption that, but at the end of the day, it's with those big contrasts where you usually learn the most about your specific viewpoint. And this happens in anything, right? It happens in political views, social opinions. It's the exact same thing. It's trying to understand the opposite argument of your standpoint.
Opposite argument. You know? That's right.
And then in your case, from a creative perspective.
Yes, it's true. It's all about intention too. I find it with, I don't know, like social thing with politics and stuff like that. It's about intention, right? So the same with art too. But I think what's something that I kind of like just keep telling myself is like to not lose myself too, because it's easy to go like, okay, sway here, sway there. Again, it's just getting really confusing, right? So I know what I like. So all the new stuff that I just accumulate like what I just tell you, like new thing that I hate but I love now and stuff like that. It's just an addition to what I already love doing in a way. So it's just, for me, it's very important for me to kind of like not lose myself. So kind of like, and then keep asking myself. It's almost like a journey of like self discovery, really.
Of course.
So
Funny that you say that, because my motto, my Instagram bio